My name is Christian Ejekota. I'm an Urhobo, a native of Orogun in Ughelli North local government area of Delta State. I'm also a graduate of linguistics, in case you are wondering. I'm a graduate of linguistics from the University of Benin. I graduated 2016, and since graduating, I've always loved following up on language issues. So I'm a language enthusiast, even though I have other jobs. But I'm focused on the description of Urhobo language. Yes, because I've checked around in the literature to see how many works are there in Urhobo language, and they are really few. And I've decided to take it upon myself as a native of Urhobo to really explain phenomenons and language concepts in Urhobo language. And today we have a very important topic, a linguistics topic that says phonology. What is phonology? I want to give a brief explanation on what phonology is, putting Urhobo language in perspective. So let's dig in. By phonology, before we drive further, I'd like to explain a few things. First of all, because phonology is a subgroup, should I put it like that? Yeah, an arm of linguistics. Because in linguistics, as we say, is the study of language. Phonology studies an arm of that language, which is sounds. Phonology is focused on sounds. Language is the systemic combination of sounds, symbols, and signs to express meaning. It is what I wrote here. So when we talk about language, we are referring to a systemic combination, not just any kind of arrangement. It is systemic, line by line, precept upon precept. That's what language is. Language is like any other science that you have there, based on rules, based on patterns, step by step procedures. So language is systemic, and is a systemic combination of sounds, speech sounds, and then for sounds we mean spoken. When we say sounds, we're talking about, we're referring to spoken language. And then symbols. Symbols capture written language. When you write on the paper, those things that you are using to represent what you are supposed to say are called symbols. That's what you're doing. And those symbols are not just combined anyhow, haphazardly. No. If you want to spell book, you don't put O and bring B first before you put another O and K. That's not book. That would be obok, and that's a non-existent word in English. Yes. And so that's symbols, and then signs to express meaning. What are signs? We also know that there are also sign languages. It's not written, it's not spoken. You use your hands to gesticulate, to express what you are trying to say, for those who are deaf and dumb. That's what they use to communicate. And so when we talk about language, we must capture their own reality, in the mix. And so all of these are ways by which meaning is expressed. You're trying to communicate with another person. The way you express that meaning is what language is. And now, based on the topic we are discussing today, it says phonology. What is phonology? I've written here, phonology is a branch of the study of language that focuses on the identification, number one. The first thing that phonology does is to identify the sounds, the speech sounds in that particular language. That's what phonology does. It's a branch of the study of language that focuses on the identification. So if we have A, we have A, E, K and T and B, D. in the language, phonology's job is to discover, to identify that, okay, so and so sounds are in this language, so and so sounds are not in this language, based on data that you have at hand. Also, phonology also studies the patterns of use, because we know when we talk about language, we talk about systemic combination. So in that systemic combination, there are patterns of use. Yes, such that in English language, for example, or let me not use English because we are focused on Urhobo. In Urhobo language, for example, you want to spell woman, which is translated aye, aye. You don't carry the Y and put it first, and put a and put E next. No, there's a pattern that is followed to spell aye. All right, and then talk about rules. Rules. There are also rules to follow. There are also rules that phonology focuses on. Phonology, as a branch of linguistics, tries to examine the rules and to discover the rules that a language is used to, that a language uses to form its combinations of sounds. For example, in Urhobo, noun words never begin with consonant sounds and they never end with consonant sounds. They always start with a vowel and end with a vowel. It is a rule in the language. And we will get to that. There are also, the next part here is interactions of speech sounds, which are phoneme in that particular language. In phonology, in the phonology of any language, as in Urhobo, phonemes or speech sounds, they interact, and this interaction can cause a change, a modification in a particular speech sound, different from the way it was originally pronounced. So those interactions are what phonology also studies. What happened to B that changed it to P? What happened to uh, 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 J, that changed it to Y, Y, the Y sound? What happened? Those interactions are what phonology also deals with. Another thing we must also understand is that speech sounds are the foundations of all spoken languages. We are dealing with phonology, and phonology is at the minimum, is at the foundation of linguistics. Because when you break a sentence, if you check your screen here, you see, I said, for example, when people speak, they speak in sentences. Then if you break down what is said, these sentences that is being spoken, what you will get, at the least unit is a speech sound. When you have a word like book, B-O-O-K, book, when you pronounce it is b, u, and k. When you break it down, you find out that you have b, u, and k. The b, u, k, each of it is a speech sound, is a phoneme, and that's the least that you can get to in language or in speech. All right. So I've put here, I said sentence. From sentence, you get to the word level, and then from the word level, you get to the speech sound, which is the phoneme. Thus, speech sounds are the smallest meaningful or distinctive unit of language. Speech sounds are the smallest meaningful or distinctive unit of language. Why do we say meaningful or distinctive? If you remove one of the phonemes and replace it with another phoneme or a speech sound, you have automatically changed the word. When I remove, for example, I remove man. We have an example, man, M-A-N, man, and then I remove the and replace it with a f. Automatically, I've changed that word. It's no longer man, but now fan. What is the difference between man and fan? It's just one letter, one phoneme, and f. So that's nature by which I replace another sound, another speech sound with another, one speech sound with another, and it causes a meaning in a difference in meaning. It means that that phoneme, that speech sound that I've replaced or removed, is distinctive. It has meaning capacity. It has the capacity to change meaning, and that's what we mean when we say that is a distinctive unit of language. Because we could have other features of a speech sound, say aspiration in English, or say unexploded in English, and whatever that you can get from when you start to break it down from phonology to phonetics. It does not carry any meaning. All of those aspiration and what have you, unexploded, unreleased, they don't carry any meaning. Although in some other languages they can carry meaning. So that is that for that. The English sentence above is formed by 4 words. Still breaking down from sentence to word to phoneme. David is the king. When you look at that example, you see that it is 4 words. David is the king. 4. Then breaking it down to phonemes, we have for David we have 5 phonemes. For is we have 2 phonemes. For thee we have 2 phonemes, not 3. Not 3. Let me see if I can edit it. It needs to be edited. Okay, but just take note that it is supposed to be 2 phonemes. Thee is 2 phonemes. Then king is 4 phonemes. Although more complicated than its English counterpart due to its adoption of suprasegments, the Urhobo sentence. I want to give an Urhobo example now. Onana uko. This is a cup. Translated in English, onana uko. The Urhobo sentence above is formed by 2 words and 8 phonemes, respectively. Onana, meaning this one. Uko, a cup, or just say cup. In Urhobo, the terminals or what's it called now? The terminals are always infused. Singular determinants are always infused with the word. And then onana means this, or we say this one. Then in Urhobo also, although those are more complicated issues now, because when we talk about suprasegments, as I've written here, that due to its adoption of suprasegments, Urhobo sentences are more complicated than English language, where you have the verb there not appearing. Because if you check the number 2 example on Anauko, and I've tried to distinguish which word is which word in English. I said onana means this, uko means cup. But then you ask yourself, where is the is? Where is the verb there? The verb there is represented by a phoneme. Sorry, a tone. If I say a phoneme, it's represented by a tone. So it's more complicated than English, where the tone is meaningful, can cause meaning difference. Once I change one of the tone here, it can transform the whole sentence into another thing entirely. And that's how tone as a suprasegment is very important in the Urhobo language. So beyond just the 2 words that you have there, you also have a tone or tones that is grammatical. Suprasegments are extra features that can affect the way a phoneme is pronounced. normally in terms of length or pitch level. Suprasegments, which is tone, in Urhobo, we are focused on Urhobo. In other languages, you can have in English, you have stress, you have intonation, and what have you. But in Urhobo, we are focused on the tone. In Urhobo can be just as meaningful or distinctive as the phoneme itself. In Urhobo, a suprasegment, like the tone, can even represent a morpheme, just as we just talked about now. We asked where is the be verb there? It is. On Anauko, when we said this is a cup, where is the be verb? Where is the is? A tone is representing is there. It can represent a morpheme. This is where the phonology of African languages get more complicated than European languages. Suprasegments. Out of the existing speech sounds, languages only select particular sounds they need. So away from suprasegments and the complications that it brings in African languages, back to speech sounds, phonology, as it says, out of the existing speech sounds, languages only select particular sounds they need. Thus, phonology deals with the identification of speech sounds in each particular language. There are hundreds of speech sounds. When you check the International Phonetic Alphabet Chart, it has 107 speech sounds, a compilation of both uh, uh, consonants and vowel sounds. It has 107. But then languages, each language does not use the whole 107. It selects the ones that it needs, that it uses. For example, in English language, combining both consonants and vowels, English language make use of 44 speech sounds or 44 phonemes that are distinctive, while Urhobo uses about 31. Out of the whole 107, you can see the fragments that each language chooses. German could have its own, and then French could have its own. Itsekiri, Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa have their own. Not all the sounds in the charts, in the International Phonetic Alphabet chart, that the languages adopt. They just pick out some. And that is where languages become different. When you hear that this language is spoken and this other language is spoken, but they don't sound the same, it is because that one of the reasons is because the sounds that are here in language A may not be present in language B. And so you see a native speaker of language A trying to speak a language B. There's what we now call language interference. Language interference can occur where the language speaker a native of language A, will now begin to substitute a sound that is that is closely related to another sound in language B, and using it to speak for language B. If I could give an example, you hear some persons from who are Urhobos, they want to pronounce the English word look, L-O-O-K, look, and then you hear them saying rook. They are replacing L with R. You get? So instead of saying look, they are saying rook or nook, as the case may be. Somebody wants to buy bread, and then he or she goes there and say, I want to buy bled. I want to buy bled. I want to buy recharge card. And they want to say recharge card. They say recharge card. But because why? There's language interference. They are not used to L and arrow in the position where they appear in English language, and so they try to substitute. And that's one of the reasons. That's one of the difference between language A and language B. let's continue. Yes, this is the International Phonetic Alphabet Chart. This is how it looks. So you can go on Google and you Google it and download it for yourself. It's very, very handy. It comes handy, when you are doing phonological analysis in your assignments, in your group works and projects. It's very handy. So look at them. These are consonants coming. These ones here represent consonants. You can see bilabial, labidental, and the likes, alveolar, post-alveolar, retroflex, palatal, and the rest of them. Out of all of these, Urhobo makes use of some, not all. Urhobo makes use of the P and the B, the M, the it, and D, the and what have you. These two fricatives here, these two here, Urhobo makes use of them. When you see this one that looks like a B here, this one here, that one is when Urhobo says words like kewe, kewe is a VW, or in Edo language is represented orthographically as VB. That's the sound there. That sound looking like a B there with a projection down there is what is used to represent the VW or the VB in Urhobo. All right, let's continue. Let's go on. All right. Also, each language adopts particular patterns. We talked about identification of speech sounds. Now, we're talking about patterns of combination. Every language does not have the same pattern. Every language have their different patterns in which they combine sounds. In English, you have a word cat, fat, big. If you try to rearrange the sounds, the speech sounds, or let's say the letters here, you get a different thing entirely, and which may not make any sense at all in English language. It may not make any sense. But carry that same words, those same words. You see this TCA here, rearranged for cat. You see the TAF there, TAF rearranged for fat, and the IGB there rearranged for big. If you carry those ones that are stereotyped, put them in another language, you may find out that they are actually words in another language. That's how funny language is. So different patterns for different languages. So a word can come from one language and it does not make sense because why? It is not following the pattern of that particular language, of another language. That's why it does not make sense to the native speaker. In Urhobo, for example, consonant clusters are not allowed. When we're talking about patterns here now, in Urhobo, consonant clusters are not allowed, and consonants does not begin or end a noun. Meanwhile, those are normal occurrences in English language. So you see it, different patterns for different languages, different styles for different languages. While in English, consonant clusters are allowed. What are consonant clusters? When two or more consonants appear, concurrently, in a particular word. That is what we mean by consonant clusters. In Urhobo, that kind of a system, that kind of pattern is not allowed, it's not obtainable. Another pattern that Urhobo does not adopt is using consonants to begin or end noun words. In English language, you have that a lot. You can have cat, pan, fan, pick, sit. Okay, those are verbs. But cat is a noun. Dog is a noun. You can see the D and the G there, both consonants ending the word. Woman, W and N ending the word. In Urhobo, it is not like that. Are we together? So now, these examples here I gave here, Ako. Ako, number one there, for this four, Ako, meaning teeth. You can see it begins with A and ends with O. both vowels. Oshari begins with O and ends with A. Oshari, meaning man. If you get your word list and you check from top to bottom, translate every English word you have there, every English noun you have there to Urhobo, you find out that this is true by pattern, by the pattern of Urhobo language. That's how it all pans out. Vowel begins and ends a noun in Urhobo. This may not really look obvious until you get a word list, yes, and try to translate the nouns in the word list into Urhobo, Urhobo words, or get a noun loan word that begins with a consonant from English language into Urhobo as seen below. Yes, so it may not look obvious, as I'm saying it now, but just try to get a word list and then translate the nouns you see there to Urhobo and find out for yourself. Then again, another phenomenon that we can use to also seal this truth, seal this pattern that Urhobo always adopts, where we see that loan words, when you borrow a word from English and you try to adopt it, you try to put it inside Urhobo, like bread, a word like bread. Urhobo has a way, because of that rule, because of that pattern that it follows. Urhobo has a way of re-syllabifying the word, the loan word, trying to rearrange the word to conform to its own pattern. So you see natives of Urhobo saying iburedi, iburedi, that to mean bread. That's a phenomenon there. So you see consonant clusters, B arrow there for bread. What Urhobo does is that it will introduce a vowel, in between the B and the arrow to break it, to break that consonant cluster, because it is not allowed. Then again, another thing it does is to introduce a vowel sound at the beginning and at the end of that word. If you check where you see bread, both beginning sound and ending sound are consonant. And then check the one for the Urhobo translation. You see E there and E at the beginning and at the end. Same thing for Jesus. For Jesus, when you translate it, Urhobo will say Ijesu, Ijesu. That's the same phenomenon that is at work there. Because of that pattern, Urhobo will break it down and try to make it look like like a word in its own language. So that's basically what languages do. Each language have their patterns that they adopt when forming words or when combining sounds together to form a word. And that's in the realm of phonology. Let's go on. Okay, before we go on, this number 4, we could see something there for Oshari and Agbara, which means chair. Oshari means man, Agbara means chair. You see the one for Oshari there, it looks as if SH is a consonant cluster. I'm sure you understand that's not a consonant cluster. SH is orthography. But when you translate it, when you transcribe it phonologically, you find out that SH there is a phoneme. It's just one sound. Same thing for Agbara. The GB there is just one sound. All right, let's go on. I said patterns begat rules. And just like we've just talked about now in Urhobo, when we say that when you check through a word list, all the nouns, and check, you see that each begins with a vowel and ends with a vowel. That's a pattern. And because of that pattern, it produces or gives birth to a rule that must be followed. And that rule is that noun words must begin with a vowel and end with a vowel. And then you have something that tries to undermine the rule, which is a loan word. What does the language do? It will syllabifies the word and make it to conform to that rule. So patterns begat rules. So consistent, observable patterns of pronunciation and usage in the combination of sounds in a language is the bedrock of rule formation in phonology as it is elsewhere. So you want to know what rules are in a language. Get a word list or get data and study the patterns that you see. You will find out the rules that the language adopts. In language, as it is in other sciences, rules are formed through established patterns, as I've written here. Thus, we know it is a rule in Urhobo not to begin or end a noun with a consonant because it is observed exhaustively from noun words translated from a word list. This is the reason noun loan words that does not conform to the rule must go through a process of resyllabification. All right, so that's very clear and very simple. Let's go on. Phonology also deals with the interaction of speech sounds and the results of that interaction in what is called phonological processes. That's another realm that phonology deals with. The interactions of sounds of of a consonant and a vowel, or consonant and another consonant. Why is there a change from P to B? What caused it? What caused it is an interaction between P and B in a certain environment that caused it. We will see more examples from Urhobo. Just take note that in a language like Urhobo, suprasegmental interactions will also be factored in. So in English language, when we talk about phonological processes, we always talking about phonemes. But in Urhobo, aside phonemes, we also talk about the suprasegments because tones too also interact, and that tone may have significant effect on the phoneme or on the pronunciation of the sentence or whatever. Many times in the production of speech, features from one speech sound can affect the next one. Those are the interactions we are talking about. For example, in Urhobo, a vowel can take up the feature of nasality in the environment of a nasal consonant. Let's see an example here. These are vowels. This is number 6 now. These are vowels A and O are both vowels. When they appear in an environment of a nasal consonant, let's say in a word like onana that we had before. Let's go there. No, not this one. What is that now? Okay. Yeah, this one. This onana. This number 2 here, onana. You see the N, the two N there are both, they are nasal consonants. Because of this N appearing here, it may have an effect on the pronunciation of the A and turn it into a nasal vowel instead of a normal vowel that it was before. So instead of having a normal A, you then have a nasal vowel there, incorporating within itself the nasal quality because it is coming before or after a nasal consonant. Those are the kinds of interactions that we are talking about. And this is not just, it's not too obvious. In other examples, you will see that uh, uh, because of these interactions, the sounds, the speech sound change dramatically. For example, we have the sound that's represented by the letter J changing to the sound that is represented by the letter Y. When you pronounce it yi, J changes to yi because of certain interactions that goes on in the language. When we come to phonological processes in another lesson, we will discuss that fully. But let's continue. Yes, it is then we are done with normal phonemes. Now then suprasegments also interact where they get elided, merged, or form a contour. These are interactions. Normally, each tone, high, low, mid, three tones that Urhobo uses, high, low, mid, stand on their own. They don't have anything in common. This one is high, this one is low, this one is mid. But then sometimes when they are when we speak in the flow of speech, they can interact and either get elided, deleted, or they merge or they form a contour tone. And these suprasegmental interactions can have significant effect on the speech sounds they are attached to. You see that? Those are the interactions again we are still talking about. Suprasegmental interactions can even affect the way the speech, the phoneme that is attached to is pronounced. I will give an example. It says, note that suprasegments refer to extra speech features. We already know that, stress, intonation, tone. Then in Urhobo, tones play major roles in determining meaning. We've talked about all of this before. Tones refer to the contrast of pitch levels in the pronunciation of syllables within speech forms. The contrast of pitch levels. Is it high? Is it low? Is it mid? When I raise my voice a little bit and I bring it down, there's a contrast there. The contrast is that one is high, one is low, or one is on plain ground level, which is mid pitch. That is what tones refer to, pitch levels. And these pitch levels, depending on the height, whether high or low or mid, it can have significant effect on the speech you're trying to convey, whether a word or a sentence, and can cause a meaning difference. So you see that in Urhobo sometimes, because we'll come to that fully when we talk about tones in Urhobo. We're trying to see how does tone cause meaning difference. In another lesson, we will discuss that. But let me just give one example. I will not write it, but I'll just say it. Um, in Urhobo, we have words like Osho and Osho. When you spell those two words, orthographically and even uh, phonemically, when you transcribe phonemically, you find out that they both are spelled the same way. They are also transcribed the same way. But then the difference is the tone. Osho has both low tones, which means fear. Osho means fear. But then Osho, I, both I, yes. Osho, both I. The first one is low, Osho. That's for fear, low tone. Then Osho, I high tone, meaning penis, the male sex organ, penis. So you see, the difference between these two now is the tone. But then we will get much deeper into all of that, where we see more examples of how tones can cause meaning difference in Urhobo language. Now, it says, as an example of suprasegmental interactions, when tones merge, it can affect the length of pronunciation of the speech sound. The length of pronunciation of the speech sound. When tones merge, it can affect the duration of the pronunciation of a particular phoneme. For example, in the negative interrogative statements in Urhobo, when Urhobo wants to make a negative interrogative sentence, the last vowel is elongated because of these suprasegmental interactions. Why is it elongated? Why will it be elongated? Why would that last phoneme be elongated? The reason is that the underlying low tone in the unused negative morpheme merges with the low tone on the last vowel of the statement. So at the end For example, now you see this English sentence here. Didn't you go to the market? When you translate it into Urhobo, it says "Wokbeki, Wokbeki." So when you listen closely, you find out that the e at the end is elongated. Wokbeki. That's how Urhobo does it. But why is that e there not just pronounced as e, but e, like it is stretched? Why? It is the reason is the low tone, measuring the low tone of the negative morpheme. You know, in Urhobo, we have a negative morpheme, which is uh, le, le, le. For example, we want to say, I will not go to school, or I didn't go to school. Let's say I didn't go to school. In Urhobo, it will be translated as me kusikulu, or okay, sorry, I'm getting it wrong. Me kusikule, me kusikule. That le at the end there, the le, when we get to negative transformation, because there's a topic I will treat called negative transformation in Urhobo. We get to see all of that. That le at the end there is corresponding to not in Urhobo, not. So when that le gets deleted or is not used, because it is the standard for negating an Urhobo sentence. When that le is not used, the tone remains, and that tone merges with the preceding vowel that ends that sentence, already carrying a low tone. When it merges with it, that's like a stretch. It then causes it's as if another, tones attached to phonemes. So when it merges with the other low tone, it's as if there is another vowel, that is the same as the already existing vowel there, is attached again. That's why when you see the from this arrow here, you see at the other side workbeki. So I doubled the I there is doubled. So that's the stretch that you see there. Workbeki is elongated. The cause of it is the merging of two low tones that came from somewhere. All right. So that's about what phonology really deals with. Phonology deals with the sound system of a language, of a particular language, not the whole language of the world, but a particular language. So you have different languages. You have Urhobo, you have Yoruba, Hausa, English, but then phonology comes at one, just focuses on one. So if it's studying English today, then it focuses on English, it focuses on Urhobo, focuses on Yoruba separately. So the sound that exists, that is obtainable in that particular language. So it identifies the sounds, identifies the patterns that it follows and the rules, and also lastly the interactions of these sounds that can cause a change, a transformation. So that's basically what phonology deals with. And so with this, we have come to the end of this lesson. I believe you have learned a lot. For more lessons, you can please subscribe to our channel. Click on the subscribe button and also click on the notification button so that when we upload new videos, you can be duly notified and you can watch and learn. This channel is dedicated to the study of linguistics with focus in the Urhobo language. Thank you very much for watching.